He was a itinerant professor from the University of Maryland, and he talked me into taking a history course, okay? And of course, being a 2.144 graduate from Willows High School, I didn't exactly have the highest GPA in the world. And he did tell me I had to spell business consistently when I was writing. But the bottom line is, he took me under his arms and talked me into taking the 2 history classes from him. And then after that, he said, I have no English teacher here. You are going to take 2 courses in English. So I did. But this one professor, his name is Daniel P. Jordan, and he became the first citizen of Virginia. He's worked with a couple presidents. He's one of these guys that just is a real driving influence. But because of what he did, 2 things. One, I knew who to blame for where I am, because without him I would have never gone to college. And 2, you never judge a book by the cover, and when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If you always keep those things in mind when you're working with your young people, you know, because sometimes I know you probably have a hard time believing this, it can drive you up a tree. And you have to just sit back and take a close look at people, because, you know, you just can't prejudge people. And so anyway, because of that, I ended up going to American River College for a couple of years. Went to Chico State, got BA, MA out of Chico, and then went to work teaching. Herff Jones got me here. And in Douglas County, I ended up being a district executive of Boy Scouts for a couple of years. And that was probably one of the most important things that in my life that made a difference in terms of how you work with people, how you put things together. And as a superintendent, it's been one of those things that has really made a difference in the way I approach things. You know, because I realized that if you want to get things done in the community, and especially when you have a diverse community, you have to get out and pull people together and find a reason for them to get together. That's critical, and I have done some reading. I know one of the issues that you have is how are we going to get more people involved in the schools when you have a very wide district. Was it 50 miles long and a mile wide or something like that, you know? And that does create its own challenges. And better stay on I can digress. Well, I'm going to stay on my background. I can probably get that question later. Okay, so anyway, I came to Oregon and was a district executive of Boy Scouts, and then I decided that I want to get back into education in Oregon, so I logged for a couple of years. So I went to the University of Oregon and got my initial administrator license. And in 1992, I had my first opportunity to be an administrator in Oregon, and I was at Detroit Lake. I was the last principal they had. They shut it down that year. So the next year I went to Riddle, found myself caught between a football coach, the superintendent, the teaching staff, and the former principal, who wanted to live in the community and work with the staff, which was kind of what I was supposed to be doing. Bottom line is I decided at that point I want to become a superintendent. Because if I'm going to be responsible for something, I want to be the person that's going to make the decision, be responsible for it, and if it doesn't work, it's my responsibility, nobody else's. Okay, so I kind of took that approach. So I went to Monument, spent 3 years over in Monument, and after 3 years, I had an opportunity to go to SIO. So I spent a decade in SIO, and in 2005, I was responsible for helping start an online school, and got it going, and did that for 2 years. And my wife passed away, and so I decided I was going to retire. So I moved to Pendleton, and after 2 months of coffee and donuts with farmers and everything, I decided for the other 22 hours I needed something else to do, and I ended up going to found an opening in Milton Freewater. So I was a vice principal at Milton Freewater for 2 years, and it's really good to get back in the front lines again. You know, when you're, what they call garbage, however you want to call it, and all of a sudden you're going down into the front trenches, kind of keeps you in perspective. We had 452 kids, 52% Hispanic, and I had all the discipline. And it worked well. It really did. And I enjoyed it. But my late wife and I had always had the desire to go to Alaska, and I had a chance to go up to Craig, Alaska. So I went up there for 3 years, principal in a small school, and really, really enjoyed it. But in the meantime, I'd gotten into a new relationship. And after 3 years back and forth, I had to make a decision. And you ladies, you know what I'm talking about. So I decided to leave Alaska and come down here. Got a job in Reedsport, and the last 2 years I've been in Reedsport. So that's what I'm doing. And there is a certain irony in the fact that I'm applying for this job. the board had voted to extend my contract for a year, and I said, however, I do not want to be a superintendent principal. As an elementary principal, 333 kids, and trying to do a full-time superintendent job. It's a fool's mission. So they kept talking about it, so finally I said, okay, I'm going to resign, because I don't need to be in a position, I'm just not the right person to handle 330 kids and try to do a full-time soup job. And you know what I'm talking about, I know you do. So that's the reason I'm here today. Okay, because you have a 6'10" superintendent, and it's something I really enjoy doing. I don't have sense enough to retire, I have masochistic tendencies, I'm ADHD, all those things you kind of throw together to make me enjoy what I do. I've been blessed to never have a job in my life, because I've always worked with young people, and I enjoy doing that, and I want to continue to do it. Okay, and here we are, your turn.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Out there and then we'll open it up. You pretty much answered both my first two questions, but I do have a bit of a follow-up on the one, and that is, what do you know about our districts?
I know that, I'm not going to sit down, or you better make the first stand. I don't want to get right here. The community I know is diverse. I had a good friend of mine, one of my former Boy Scouts used to go to school here years ago, and Chris Gottschalk, and he was a scout I had.
He graduated with me.
Did he?
In 96.
Yeah, anyway, Chris was in my scout unit that had 7 kids. 6 of them became Eagle, and so, you know, I really enjoyed working with him. But the community is very diverse in terms of occupations. It's diverse in terms of its economic status. Has a high poverty rate, and somehow, and I have a few ideas, we need to pull people together, make them want to come to school and become involved. And sometimes, if you can't have them come to you, you have to go to them. Okay. I've seen a successful run of, like Donuts for Dads, Donut for Mom. You can do that and find a place in local communities where there's here or wherever. You just find a location, you invite people to come down. And you know, it's really interesting. A lot of people don't want to come to a school because it's too formal. But if you can go in their backyard and sit down and have a discussion about what's going on, talk about what their issues are, what they'd like to see the school be doing, and you know, as we all have heard the expression, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth. You know, sometimes, even though I'm talking a lot today, I have to. But to listen to what people have to say, what their concerns are, and work together to find a solution. The other idea is to pull people from various communities together and form an advisory committee with people from the different communities, and work together, kind of like the Scout committee is, right? You know, how you have people in the community get together and discuss the common issues and find ways to work together to improve what's going on. There's another way. Anytime you serve food in any place, people show. You remember the Field of Dreams, you know, build it and they will come, serve the donuts, they will be there, you know, for the most part. But you do have to be kind of creative in terms of finding ways to get people involved. And I'm one of these type that, well, I'll tell you, I was in Henley High School when I was first Jones yearbooks, and I remember at the senior hall they had a sign that said, "A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet." And I kind of live by that. I'm not afraid to go out and introduce myself to people and, you know, kind of get to know where they're from, what their issues are. And it doesn't matter what their economic status is. I mean, we're all the same. You know, we want to basically have the basic things in life. You want to have food, shelter, clothing. You want your kids to be successful. You want the schools to do a good job educating your kids. But it takes cooperation between the school and the community working together to get that done. And that's the real key. You know, you can't blame poverty, because the reality is kids in poverty need the help more than most, because they're struggling every day to get into the school. Sometimes they don't, but you have to make them feel welcome. One thing, Reedsport has about an 83-4% poverty rate. And every morning at school, I'm out the front door welcoming kids in. You know, my name, I haven't got all 300 yet, but I'm working at it. We have about a 21% mobility rate. And Harry Wong had that thing about there. You stand out in front of the door, teachers in front of the door, welcome kids to the classroom, make them feel welcome. And I think that's important, that you really get out there and get to know your kids, become involved in the community, go to the athletic contests, become involved in what's going on. And that doesn't take away from the fact sometimes the students have to make some pretty tough decisions. I think 8 of the last 15 years I've been a superintendent, I've had to make staff cuts, budget cuts, and I've seen, for example, your shop program here. That's a crying shame, because these kids, you know, we have, the state has this 40-40-20, you know, 40% kids that want to go to college, 40% they want to have a CTE credential, and 20% of the other 20% have a high school diploma. Not that I think it's realistic, but, you know, some communities it's actually maybe a 60-20-20, check my math here, you know, in terms of the way it should look. But it's important these kids have opportunities, not just academic, because too many kids aren't into academia. You know, they need to have something to keep them occupied and busy. And it's important. One of the things we did do in these four was we got a $250,000 apprenticeship grant from the Bureau of Labor and Industry, BOLI grant. And that's something that if I were here and want to work on, got about 40% of my time, so to speak, to work on grants and find ways to get revenue in the district, as well as getting out in the community and knowing people. You know, I'm old school. I mean, you say 5 or 6 tenths, that means about 90% of my time is here to work on things to get things moving. And that's one of the things I think I've been fairly successful at. Did I answer your question more than that?
Great. You actually